It's about 11:03, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. And this is Chris Lytle from Google, and I'm the East Coast Chrome specialist. So I work with businesses and government agencies on the East Coast related to Chrome and ChromeOS. And we also have Michael Canton here from Cloud Sherpas, who's working with us in the Georgia Public Library system to roll out these Chrome devices. And also we have Lisa Eubanks from the Rossville Library, who was brave enough to step up and be our initial pilot. And so we're going to talk a little bit about ChromeOS in general, and then Lisa's going to talk a little bit about some of the experiences that she's had with the pilot in Rossville. And then finally, Michael is going to jump in at the end and give a little bit of information on how you can follow up with us if you're interested in evaluating ChromeOS for your library system. So first of all, I just wanted to start off again and thank you all for participating today. You know, we've had great success with Chromebooks and ChromeOS in the educational space throughout the country. We've got about 40,000 schools that are using them right now. And actually just announced a very large deal in Malaysia where we're going to be sending 200,000 Chromebooks for their educational system. And many of the things that make Chromebooks and ChromeOS very attractive to the educational market are also the same features and functions that make them very attractive to libraries as well. You know, you're dealing with a large group of users with varying degrees of technology savvy, and you're going to be having the same device utilized by multiple people. So, you know, ChromeOS was really designed to do a lot of those things, and I think those same capabilities are what we make them an excellent fit for libraries as well. And so we're going to go into a little bit more detail on that. So, you know, as I stated, ChromeOS is really ideally suited to libraries. Sometimes what we find in the business space is that because the enterprise might be, you know, wedded to some very old systems from, you know, folks like SAP and JD Edwards that require Internet Explorer to operate, we run into that situation sometimes on the business side. But fortunately, when it comes to libraries, we really don't run into those type of compatibility issues. So really a great fit for libraries. And I'm sure you all recognize many of the challenges that libraries that are offering public computers are facing. You know, first of all, there's stretched IT resources, and you know, and speaking with Emily from Georgia Public Libraries, she explained that many of the districts and libraries actually don't have full-time IT staff, and that, you know, even for those that do have dedicated IT resources, that they're often overburdened. Next, there's obviously limited budgets that all government agencies are facing these days, and I know that Georgia has been fortunate in that there is some money that's allocated specifically for replacing some equipment. So, but we all know that in general, you know, budgets are limited, and there needs to be very, you know, wise and pragmatic outlooks on where money is spent. And then next, obviously, you're dealing with a user base that has a very wide range of computer skills, and you know, just from our anecdotal conversations with folks, we found that, you know, a lot of the users tend to be maybe to the lower side of the skill range, maybe, you know, some older folks or younger folks that don't really have a lot of experience using computers. And then finally, you know, there's all kinds of security issues that come with shared computers. When you know, whether it's a user leaving some data behind on the device, or you know, having a malicious person potentially coming in and trying to compromise that computer. Anytime you open up a computer to the public, you run the potential for security issues. And a lot of the issues that I've mentioned previously are really highlighted in the way that folks have traditionally managed desktops, right? With Windows, you've got a really complicated stack of applications and tools that run on top of it. And you kind of are always in this cycle of updating software, patching the software, finding that the hardware needs to be upgraded to satisfy the requirements of the new software. doing the backups, doing the updating virus definitions, and then every time you make a change on one of these components, there's always the risk that it's going to impact another one of these components negatively. So that results in some real issues over the course of time. One is security vulnerabilities. There are all different ways for malware and viruses to get onto a Windows device through plugins and through extensions and all these various methods because it is a fairly complex operating system. Then you frequently have computer downtime where you have anything from a corrupt registry within Windows that can bring a computer down to failed hard drives. And obviously, when you have a limited number of devices and a lot of folks looking to use those, you can have some unsatisfied users when the computer's unavailable. The other thing that turns to an issue is that these computers tend to get slow over time when you're constantly, doing these patching and updating and installing software and uninstalling software. We all know that Windows has a tendency to kind of degrade as far as performance over the course of several months, and most savvy users recognize that there's a need to reload Windows maybe twice a year at the least in order to maintain any kind of performance level. And then finally, there's just a huge amount of staff time that's required to maintain this traditional management cycle where there's constant updating that's going on and patching, and then trying to address whatever it is that's causing performance issues on the computers, trying to fix computers that are down. And as we mentioned earlier, there is a limited amount of IT staffing that's available to address these issues. And in many cases, in many of your branches, there isn't a dedicated staff to make that happen. So the time issue becomes very sensitive as well. So what we have is ChromeOS. And ChromeOS, is really only a few years old. It was built from the ground up with really three key design principles. We want speed, we want simplicity, and we want security. And so everything that is done with ChromeOS is geared towards making it a faster device, making it a simpler device to use and to operate, and to make it the most secure operating system on the market right now. And the first aspect is speed, right? So one of the things that's really great about a Chrome device is that it boots up in about 6 to 8 seconds, depending on which device you're talking about. And if you are familiar with Windows, Windows can take up to 3 to 4 minutes to crank up. I had to use my son. I've been on my Chromebook exclusively now for about 4 to 5 months, and I had to get on my son's computer the other day to do something for him, and I was just baffled by how long it took for the device just to fire up in the first place. So it's a very fast device. It's very lean operating system. And one of the things that's great about it is that the devices actually get faster over time. And what we mean by that is that we release a new version of ChromeOS probably about once every 6 weeks, and that's automatically pushed down to the device. And in addition to adding additional functionality and additional security features, it also makes better utilization of the onboard resources. So using those processors better, using that memory better, using the hard drive access bus better. And the initial Chromebooks that came out, the CR48s, we benchmarked, and they actually run 30% faster today than the day that they came out. And that's because you don't get all this bloating and kind of all these artifacts left behind in the registry from installing and uninstalling software, and installing and uninstalling drivers. It's a very clean system, and we're always focused on performance. So, one of the things that we think is really a clear differentiator for the Chrome devices is just the flat-out speed, and the fact that as opposed to Windows devices, which tend to get slower over time, our devices actually get faster over time. And then the next aspect is simplicity, right? One of the things that's great about Chrome devices is that there just aren't very many moving parts. Pretty much all the devices use solid-state hard drives, which mean that you're not going to have that critical point of failure with potentially dead hard drive coming along at one point. There are ports on them, but there aren't a huge amount of ports. So it's from just an industrial design perspective, it's a very simple device. And the other thing that's great about that is that because there are less moving parts and there are less things to break, we believe that they're going to have a much longer lifespan than a traditional Windows PC. Whereas usually you'll see a Windows PC refresh cycle of about 3 years, we're anticipating that Chrome devices will have a refresh cycle of 4 to 5 years. Not only because they're much harder to break, but also because we continually make them faster, as I referenced earlier. So we think that an investment in a Chrome device is going to have a much longer life than a standard Windows device. And one of the really critical aspects of Chrome devices is that they can all be managed from one browser-based console. And this is just a quick screen grab of the console. And so the way that works is the first time that you log into the device and it's been registered to your Chrome console, it'll automatically associate itself with your domain and start pushing down the policies that you've assigned to that device. So we have this concept of organizational units for devices, where you can break devices up by location. If you have one administrator that's administering multiple locations, they can organize all those in a way where you might have one branch in one organizational unit, another branch in another organizational unit. And then also you can specify, maybe you have some devices that are going to have that you're going to make more open, in the sense that you're not going to lock them down as much as far as what features and functions. You can create organizational units within organizational units for different functional areas. And there's so many things that you can set from the Chrome Management Console that's going to make your life easier as an administrator. Everything from setting up Wi-Fi and network access, all the way to determining where the user can go on the web and where they can't go on the web. You can determine which applications and extensions you want to have pushed down to them dynamically. You can also configure public sessions, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But there's over 100 different policies that you can administer on the device to really lock it down so that users are doing only those things that you deem appropriate. And as I referenced, one of the key capabilities of the Management Console is the ability to administer what we call public sessions. And a public session is a mode of operation for ChromeOS where you can set policies for that device without requiring a user to log in, right? And there's all kinds of things you can set there, branding your home page, setting the default sites and apps like we discussed earlier, blocking content, locking down audio, video, and storage, so that if there's certain sites that you don't want users to be able to use, or if you don't want them to be able to access the camera or the microphone, you can lock all those things down as well. You can also lock down the ability for a user to save data to a thumb drive or upload data. So you have a wide range of options on what you can do to really control what the user's up to. You can set session timeouts. I know that's an important thing. You have a number of users that are going to be coming in, so you can set those session timeouts in advance. Set custom end user licenses if that's applicable. Enforce proxy rules, if you have a proxy server. So there's just a really wide range of things. And one of the things that's really important about public session mode is that once a user leaves a public session and logs out, all the data that if they had downloaded any documents or downloaded anything to the local download directory, all that data is wiped out immediately, and any data that was used in the session is wiped out immediately. So that when a user logs out, the device is clean again, and they're not going to leave behind anything either intentionally that's inappropriate or leave behind any personal data that might be accessed by the next user. And we have a new feature that we just rolled out called Quick Office. And what Quick Office enables you to do is you can actually edit Word documents, PowerPoint documents, Excel documents, things within the Microsoft Office suite, and then save those in their native format, and then the user can email them to themselves or upload them to a directory if they want. And what this allows you to do is not have to purchase Microsoft Office licenses for anybody that just wants to edit a document. So you can't create a new document from there, but in our conversations with libraries, what we find is that when folks are using public devices, they're more likely to be editing an existing document that they already have. And QuickOffice allows you to do that, and the best part about it is that it's free. So while ChromeOS does not run Microsoft Office, you still have the capability of satisfying the needs of 90% of your users with this free plugin. And then, the final major bullet point is security. And, as I'm sure you folks are aware, Google puts a very strong priority on security. We've got billions of users around the world, so, we need to make certain that everything that we do is extremely secure because, we kind of have a target on our back in that regard. And, we hire the best engineering talent from around the world. And, the cream of the crop is really our security folks. We really believe that we have the best security team of any company out there right now. And so this quote, I think is a really interesting one. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with Kevin Mitnick, but he's kind of like the Michael Jordan of hackers. This is a fellow that got into a lot of trouble, was prosecuted for hacking into government computers, starting from a young age. But since that time has, created his own security company and is really known as the expert on hacking. And, the quote says it all, really, where he was being interviewed and being asked about, are there any secure operating systems out there? And his initial response was, no, I've had 100% success at penetration testing on all of them. And then he thought about it for a second. He came back and said, no, wait a second. ChromeOS is the most secure because it's very limited attack vector. There's just nothing to exploit. And so this is really coming from the horse's mouth as far as the security aspects of ChromeOS. And there's a number of things that are that really drive that security paradigm. And I won't get too wonky on this stuff, but there's really 5 main components that really drive our security process. The first is auto updates. We automatically push a major release of ChromeOS out about once every 6 weeks. But in the interim, we also push down any patches for security reasons for anything that we find along the way. And because we have a huge number of users that are out there that can report back to us security issues, and because we're constantly scanning the web for our search engine purposes, we are aware of vulnerabilities far faster than anybody like Symantec or AVG might be. So our security updates come fairly frequently, and they're completely transparent to the user. You folks don't have to worry about it. It's just always the latest and greatest version. And there's a variety of ways you can configure auto updates. If for some reason you wanted to test it first, you could sandbox it and then do your testing and then make it available to everyone. But one of the other things that's really a nice feature too is the ability to stagger the auto update process so that your network isn't getting hit with all of the downloads for the operating system at the same time. And not the operating system is particularly huge. It's only about 75 megs, but if you start dealing with a large number of devices, you're going to want to make certain that you're not crushing your network at 4 o'clock on a Thursday. One of the other really critical pieces is what we call sandboxing. So all of the processes within ChromeOS, including the browser itself, run in its own secure environment, and they cannot cross-contaminate. So what that means is that, with Internet Explorer, there's been a lot of issues where one tab starts to access data in another tab, right? There are malwares that allow that to happen. Within ChromeOS, every process runs in its own space, and they do not have access to each other, so there's no opportunity for cross-contamination. Next, we have verified boot, which is really pretty incredible. One of the design principles of ChromeOS is that every bit of software that is resident on the device came through Google, right? So in the course of booting up the device, what we have the opportunity to do is check whatever software is resident on the device and compare it to the reference versions that we have on our servers. And that allows us to see if anyone has tampered with it, if any of it has become corrupted in any way. And if there's anything wrong with that operating system, we stop the boot process, we push down the latest version of the operating system, and then the user is just booted into a nice clean version immediately. And that all takes place in that 8-second boot time. And I'm not really certain how we do it, but it's pretty impressive. And so every time the device boots up, it's checking to make certain nothing's wrong. And if something is wrong, we're going to go ahead and fix it, and the user's never even going to know about it. So there's not even an opportunity for them to boot into a insecure environment. The next aspect is, how we handle data storage and encryption. All user data for various logins are partitioned into their own space, and those partitions are encrypted at 128-bit, so that even if a user was to, a malicious person was to come in and steal one of the Chrome boxes and come running out and try to hook it up at home, unless they've got the username and password, they're not going to be able to get to anything. They're just not going to be able to do it. And then finally, we have what we call safe browsing. And as I mentioned earlier, we have this kind of unique opportunity as the world search engine to know a lot about what's going out there on the internet, right? And so since we're constantly indexing the public web, we're looking for malware and phishing and anything that points to the potential that the site might be malicious in some way. The other thing that we have is, because we've got so many Gmail users that are able to report spam, when they report spam, we track that against the domain. So what we have is really a master list of sites that's constantly updated. And we have a list of sites that are potentially dangerous to the user. And so when a user tries to access one of those sites, a warning comes up basically letting them know, hey, you are entering a site that may be dangerous, to your computer. Do you want to proceed or not? And this is a function that you can kind of configure within the management console, so that if you did not want to allow the user to proceed one way or the other, you can do that. So what you really have is the power of our kind of massive vacuum of website information that is being used in a very practical way to make certain that your users are not accessing sites that could be damaging to their device or compromise their security. And so we've got a really great success story with the Palo Alto library system. I guess about 1.5 years ago, they started looking at Chromebooks as an option because they were ramping up a loaner program for laptops. And they wanted to take a look at Chrome devices because they recognized they could get 4 Chromebooks for every Windows laptop that they purchased. And it really has been an incredible success. They've continued to expand the program time after time. And Monique Lekong, who's the director of the Palo Alto Libraries, who was really our champion, speaks about her experiences with Chromebooks all the time. She's on vacation this week, so she wasn't able to join us. But we do have some really good articles that refer to their experience, and and I think these 2 quotes are pretty important, because the first quote addresses the fact that the patrons are happy with it. It's simple for them to use. They do not have to be experts in computers to be able to get their use out of it, and they're light and easy to carry. And then the second component, the equally important part is, how easy is it for their staff to manage? And as she says, it's been a breeze to manage, and it's all set. ChromeOS is set up to have a great, simple user experience and to have a great management experience for the IT staff. So we're very pleased to be working with the City of Palo Alto, and and Monique would be happy to stand as a reference for us in case you all have any questions about some of the particulars of their implementation. So I just kind of want to bring it back full circle, and between Michael and me and Jeff Schilleman, who's the Georgia account rep, we'll be happy to speak to any of y'all and go into detail about any of these functions. But I wanted to kind of go back to some of the initial challenges that we talked about that libraries are facing in regards to public computers. The first is stretched IT resources, and the bottom line is that there is no computer that is easier to manage than a ChromeOS device. Not only because there are limited opportunities for it to fail, but also because we have a very powerful management console that allows you to manage all these devices from a centralized location without actually having to go to the computer to fix in almost all cases. The next challenge was limited budgets, and our devices are low cost, not only as far as the cost of purchasing them initially, but also the fact that they're going to last longer than a Windows device, and that they're going to get better and faster over the course of time. And the final component of the cost issue is that there's a much decreased total cost of ownership, because if you're not fixing corrupt PST files or bad sectors on hard drives or dealing with viruses or sluggish Windows PCs, those are less staff resources that are going to be dedicated towards those issues, and staff resources that can be dedicated towards helping people use the devices instead of fixing the devices. Next is some of the challenges related to the varying computer skills that patrons might have. And we have a very simple user experience, and as the quote from the Palo Alto Libraries speaks to, they're very easy for folks of all user experiences to use. And then finally is the challenges related to the security on shared devices. And we absolutely offer the highest levels of security, not only just in the general paradigm of how ChromeOS works, and as Mitnick's quote mentioned, a limited attack vector. There's not much to go after, but we can also set things within policies that ensure security as well. So you can really lock down a device to make certain that folks are only using it in the way that it was intended. And so in general, we think that Chrome devices very much speak to the challenges that libraries face when offering shared computers. And we've had the opportunity to prove that out in a few library systems, and we're fortunate enough to have Lisa Eubanks step up and offer to have a pilot in the Rossville library. And so I'm going to turn it over to her and let Lisa speak a little bit about her experiences with the pilot.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, you're exactly right. Everything you said, I will vouch for that, and I just want to re-emphasize some things. And the first slide that I have is just to kind of maybe say, here's what our library looked like, and maybe if this looks familiar to you, then you'll understand why we decided to go with the Google Chrome pathway. We're a medium-sized library system. I'm the director of that system. We're located in Northwest Georgia, in the corner of the state. We have 2 different counties that I serve and 4 branches, and the Rossville Library branch is the one that I selected for this Google pilot project because it has the most use of computers in that community. Of course, people come into there for books, but there's more patrons that come into that library for the usage of the computer. So I felt like it would be a really good place to start. Just like Chris said, all of our libraries have shrinking budgets. Our staff size have shrunk, and this may especially sound familiar to you. We have one tech person who's responsible for over 100 PCs in all 4 of our branches, and she's on-the-job trained. She's got a lot of skills. She's really good, but she is responsible for a lot with not a lot of training behind that. And on top of all that, she does some cataloging too. So you can see why we're starting to think there's got to be a better way. And that brings me to the next slide. There was a better way, and I won't go over all of this exactly because I think Chris did talk about a lot of this, and we were having to take these PCs, lock them down. You spend all this money on a PC with all this memory and all this hard drive, and then you start locking down the hard drive and not let people save to it. And if you do let them save, you have to buy some software so it'll clean it up when they're finished, and not to mention all the print management and time management software. So we were spending a lot of our time on these PCs when we realized there was probably a better way. And sure enough, there was. So let me tell you about why we decided to go out on the Google limb. We just jumped right in. We replaced 20 public access PCs with Chromeboxes. Now that was all of our public PCs with the exception of 2. So we decided to jump in head first and know just a little bit here, because I don't know about your patrons, but if we just had a few here, they're they'll probably think that they don't want to learn anything new and they won't want to try it, and you just kind of have to put them in that position to where here's something new, try it. So we decided to go all out, and so we replaced 20 of our PCs, left 2 public computers that were Windows-based. We had a 2-hour staff training session for our existing staff, and we invited our other managers to join so they could decide if this was going to be the way they wanted to go for their branches. And we basically did an overnight deployment. We were closed to the public on Thursdays anyway, so that's when we did our training. We brought all the new devices up, and Friday morning we opened up the library with these new Chrome boxes, and that was before. You see how clunky those boxes are? And now, look, those little Chrome boxes are real nice and small, and it's just a whole different look. And I'll tell you, the biggest difference was the sound in our library. You just don't realize how much noise those PCs make, and getting rid of them, everything was a lot quieter in our library. On opening day, we were open that morning at 10 o'clock. We had people file in, and very quickly all 20 Chrome boxes were in use for most of that day. And we were very surprised. We had put some extra staff in that library from the regional library to help to answer the questions and to be there for the patrons because we felt like this is going to be new. And we were shocked at how little we were needed. We must have underestimated our patrons because they came in, a lot of them had Google accounts. We just kind of gave them a couple of little instructions. If you've got a Google account, please log in, and gave them a couple of printing tips before they sat down, and then we waited. We waited for them to come get us when they needed help, and we just didn't have that many of our patrons who needed our help that first day. So it was a very positive experience. They were much faster. They noticed that immediately. The whole experience in all was a positive one. We are excited about looking to see how our power bill is going to change for our electricity because these Chrome boxes only use 20 watts of power versus 250 watts of power that a PC would use. So that's going to be just an added bonus for us. The only issues that we have for now, which I'm saying for now because we've got Google behind these issues and they're not going to let them stay issues for very long. We had a couple of people, one teenager, this was before school started when we did our rollout, and he couldn't get on one of his gaming sites. It was a Windows-based gaming site, so he had to be moved to a Windows computer. We also have had some issues with exams that we proctor from some of the online universities. One in particular is this Western Governors University. There is still something within Western Governors program that's a Windows-based, but I'm assuming that they're going to get caught up and they're going to take that away and not necessarily make it be Windows-driven or Internet Explorer-driven. So that's just a matter of time. But we do have to take those patrons and move them over to a Windows computer. And there have been a few job application sites that have something running behind them that just will not run on Chrome, and we've had to move those patrons over as well, but we feel like that those will eventually work themselves out. And we had some printing issues, but we've resolved most of those, and the printing issues we had were just what you see on the screen, trying to print it and it not print exactly like you see it. And we've resolved that by saving the document as a PDF and then printing from there, and that's really taking care of that issue. So all in all, our patrons are pleased that they're faster. And you know what? The biggest impact, I'd say, has been on my IT staff. And it's just life-changing. It's library-changing is the way I like to say it. And we're going to be deploying Chrome boxes in our other 3 branches. And when that's said and done, we'll have about over 50 of these Chrome boxes in our libraries. And so you can see, actually it may be closer to 60. And you can see once she had 100 PCs, she'll go to 60 Chrome boxes, and then the rest of those PCs are for staff and the couple of Windows computers we're going to keep. And those boxes will just literally not need any of her time. She can sit at her desk and move boxes into different policies. And we did create a public policy. We have a children's policy, and we have an OPAC policy that has different settings for when patrons log in. You can just move your machines in and out of those. those, and you can correct and adjust and make changes to the policies remotely. It's really going to change what she does every day. She's not worried that she's going to be twiddling her thumbs. There's plenty of other work to be done in our libraries, and all those things with web development that she's never had time to do because she's too busy managing PCs. So we're really excited about that, and she can hardly wait for us to do this deployment in our other 3 libraries. But I'm sold and convinced, and I've worked at the branch myself and interacted with the patrons, and they really are enjoying their experience along with us. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure if that's the next part of this, but I wanted to leave my contact information with you in case you wanted to contact me directly. And if you're in our area and you want to come up and visit and see us, we'd be happy to have you visit our library as well.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Lisa. That was just, it doesn't really get any better than that from our perspective. And I think that's one of the reasons why we really wanted to make certain that before we started reaching out to the broader library community, we wanted to make certain that we could have one of your peers there who's actually gone through the pilot process and has had success with it. So we think that's really powerful. We are going to do a question and answer session at the end, and I know that we've been getting a real good number of questions, so we're going to address that. But first, I'm going to pass the ball over to Michael Canton real quick, and Michael's going to talk a little bit about how you can get more information about Chromebooks and ChromeOS and how you can order it.
All right, thanks, Chris. Let me
Absolutely.
share that. All right, can you see that, Chris?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. All right. Cloud Sherpas is proud to be the consulting and fulfillment partner for this initiative. I wanted to give you, as such, a little bit of an intro to who Cloud Sherpas is and what our involvement has been to date. I know that Lisa went over quite a lot of that, the tasks that we went through to get the Rossville location up and running, and then most importantly, how you can get some additional information and talk to us about your particular library system or the individual libraries and how it would work to have Chrome in those particular systems. Cloud Sherpas was founded in 2007, and we are the largest Google partner in the world. We were the 2011 and 2012 Partner of the Year, and we have 18 offices around the world on 3 different continents. We've helped over 2.5 million people move to the cloud in those 5 years, and over 5,000 organizations around the world, both public and private. So we have a great deal of experience in all of Google's ecosystem. And of course, we're only talking right now about the ChromeOS offerings, but across all of the Chrome offerings, the Google offerings, we have a great deal of experience. From a integration with GPLS in the libraries, we started back in the first quarter talking to Emily at GPLS to understand the specific needs of the Georgia libraries individually, some of the unique things that in her experience that we needed to address. And then Lisa stepped forward talking about an implementation at the Rossville location, and we worked with Lisa for a few weeks and her staff on the needs of the patrons and the technology landscape and talking about the connectivity to the internet and fiber and a lot of those, the technical issues behind the scenes. And we worked to set up the specific policies and procedures and the best practices. As Chris mentioned, a lot of those, the 100 unique different policies that can be set up for each of the individual boxes or the organizations or libraries, depending on how that's set up. And we did all of that ahead of time. So then once the library was closed, we simply connected the devices, turned them on, and they each knew where they were supposed to be and inherited the specific policies. And at that point, they were ready to go. And I was with Lisa and her team on site that next day, that Friday. We sat eagerly by waiting for questions. And as Lisa mentioned, we were pleasantly surprised surprised that all of the patrons just took right to the systems without any questions whatsoever. So that was, we're very happy to see that, of course. And we've worked with Lisa and her team over the past few weeks on hints and tips and best practices and useful Chrome extensions that the patrons might find interesting about new ways to print things or reorder things perhaps, or just some things that make it a lot easier to interact with the devices. I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can get some more information about the Chrome program, ChromeOS, and the individual devices. I've set up a landing page, and this is the URL, and if you don't get a chance to copy that down, we'll certainly be sending out the presentation and the individual link to this. And on this landing page, you'll find the individual offerings from Chromebox, the Chromebook, and then also Google is offering for each individual library. When you order 30 Chromebooks, you'll also get, and you'll see a bigger picture of this on one of the subsequent pages, you'll get a charging cart. So if you're looking at mobile labs or outreach into the community or training rooms, it's a great way to keep all of those devices locked up and charged and be able to move those very easily. So this URL will bring you to this landing page. All of the information on those devices are there, and those links are live where you see them in blue. You can click on those, and those will go directly to the Google pages where you'll get additional technical information if you want to see how many USB ports, the power draw, the the monitors that it works with, etc. That's all on Google's site hosted there. And then there's a button at the bottom of the page. Actually, it's that blue text, request additional information. If you click on that, it will bring you to a Google form, and you can simply fill that out. And myself or someone else from Cloud Sherpas will reach out to you individually to discuss the specific needs of your individual system or the library that you're looking to implement Chrome into. And then we can talk about the specifics of how that would work. And these are the individual devices that we talked about. So the Chromebox and the Chromebook, and then there's the charging cart that holds the 30 Chromebooks and charges those. And we've also put together a couple of shrink-wrapped support offerings and implementation offerings, if you will, depending on the size of the implementation. One at a distance, and then another one from an on-site perspective, as we did with Lisa up at the Rossville location, and then an additional one from a advanced technical support perspective. And these are just kind of out-of-the-box shrink-wrapped offerings. We're extremely flexible from the offering perspective, so if you have a unique need, we'll certainly address that individually. From a process perspective, once we talk about that, very quickly, usually within an hour or so, we can put together an electronic quote, and you'll get this in PDF form. That'll be emailed to you. And then once we receive the PO and the products ordered, Chris showed the control panel, the administrative interface that's web-based. You'll actually see the devices once they've been ordered. The individual serial numbers will be highlighted in the system, and you'll see those as ordered, shipped, etc. And then you can actually start taking those devices, and we can work with you to set those up, as Lisa mentioned, juvenile machines, OPAC machines, etc., and the individual policies and procedures for those. So when those devices are received at the individual libraries, they can simply verify the serial number against a list of where it's supposed to go, plug it in, turn it on, and it will instantly refresh all of the policies specific to that particular area, whether it's only being able to access Disney and PBS Kids, et cetera, for the juvenile devices, or the Georgia Pines for the OPAC devices, et cetera. There's no on-site technical assistance required, simply plugging in the device to the keyboard, mouse, and monitor, turning it on, and connecting it to the network, and it will receive all of its updates and upgrades automatically. I've also put my contact information in here, and again, you can reach out to me individually, or you can fill out the request for additional information form on that landing page, and we'll be happy to work with you on that. Chris, let me turn it back over to you, and I believe we're going to do some Q&A.
Yeah, and I don't really have anything exciting to show for this, but we do have Lisa's contact information, so if anybody wants to reach out to her, there's a good opportunity to copy it down. Yeah, so Kyle has been doing a great job of compiling some of the questions that have come up, and so I'm just going to run through them, and if anybody has any additional ones, feel free to reach out, and we will make that happen. So the first question is, so one management console can cover as many as 17 branch libraries, and the answer to that is yes. You can set up, I think the number of organizational units that we support is in the tens of thousands. So yes, one management console can cover as many as 17 branch libraries and far more than that. It's one of the really critical aspects of the system here. The next question is if we can control sessions, can we also get long-term session stats, like number of sessions per month? We do not currently have that capability, but it's one that is on the product roadmap. It's something that, that we've gotten a lot of requests for across the board, both from enterprise and government agencies, which is more of a reporting after-the-fact capability. So probably something that will be available in Q1 or Q2 of next year. The next question was related to QuickOffice, as far as whether or not that capability is available today. And it is available today, but it's not turned on by default as of yet. So if you have, if you want to access that capability through ChromeOS, go to your, open up a browser and type in Chrome://flags. And that is a area that lets you configure, a wide variety of new features. And if you scroll down through there, you'll see a listing for Enable QuickOffice. And you can just go ahead and click that, and that will be available. And so it is available in the stable release channel today. And then likewise, you can also find for just the browser, you can find the QuickOffice viewer if you go to the Google Web Store and you type in Chrome Office Viewer, and you can install it from there. Let's see here. The next question is related to updating, and it says, if we have large numbers of devices, can one device download the updates and then distribute those to other devices on the LAN? We do not currently do that in that method, but what we do have available is if you want to distribute the updates as an MSI, you can go ahead and do that and package it up and send it out. It does become fairly more labor intensive to do that because that means, like, we do have releases that come out every 6 weeks. So, we would recommend using auto updates as a distribution mechanism. But if you want to go ahead and test it first, you can turn it off in the console manager, the management console. Turn off auto updates for all the devices until you're comfortable for the new update, that the new update is all good. Then you can turn it back on, and it'll be pushed out to all the devices dynamically. And one of the other reasons that you want to really rely on the auto updates is that the security, point releases along the way come fairly frequently, and although they're not going to have any impact on functionality or add new features or anything like that, it is going to make certain that your Chrome device implementation is, running the latest and greatest, most secure version of ChromeOS. So the next question is, SSD long-term use is still an uncertain area for me. What happens to a Chromebox if when the SSD fails? And by that, we're talking about the solid state, storage, the solid state drive. So, as I referenced earlier, we don't use a traditional IDE hard drive with a spinning platter and all that kind of good stuff. It's all solid state like it would be in your phone. Solid-state hard drives have a tendency, either they're not going to work the first time you plug it in, but after you plug them in, they're probably going to work for a real long time because there's no moving parts. In the event that there is an issue, obviously the Chromeboxes have a warranty period, and Samsung has been very good about swapping out anytime we need to get a device changed out because it just doesn't happen that often. The next question is related to filtering and blocking policies, and in particular, are we capable of providing SIPA compliant filtering? And SIPA is the Children's Internet Protection Act that I'm sure you guys are all more familiar with than I am. So we do not satisfy all the requirements of SIPA, so you might want to have a proxy-based filtering software still in place that allows for the comprehensive blocking of sites, and that also allows for the auditing that's required on the back end as well. We think at some point our capabilities will expand to the point where it'll cover SIPA, but at this point you're still going to want to have a proxy-based solution as well. And then there's another question about, in larger libraries, how are you managing PC reservations and printing and payment for printing? These are still capabilities that, printing, we have capabilities for. The reservation period is something that we're adding. And I know that a lot of you folks use Envisionware, and they're local here in Atlanta, and we've been in conversations with them about seeing how we can integrate with their existing capabilities. And those are meetings that we're actually going to take place later this week. So as of right now, it does not, we don't offer the full range of integration that Envisionware does, but what we're anticipating is that we're going to be able to leverage your investment in Envisionware and pull some of those capabilities through in the management console. All right, got another question is, we currently offer wireless printing, but it requires an application to be downloaded and installed on the laptop. Would this be possible with Chromebooks? As of now, that would not be possible because there is no capability to do an install of an executable. That's a big part of our security model, is that all the software that resides on the device actually comes from Google. Now, on the other hand, that sounds like something that would be a really good fit for a custom extension that we could build, that we could work with you all to build. So I'd be interested in, whoever asked that question, if you could follow up, maybe shoot me an email with your contact info so we can drill in a little bit further and, see what we can do about addressing that use case. And my email is just clydle@google.com. And then there's, how do we physically secure the devices? Are they locked down somehow? We don't have any particular capabilities, although you can use, kind of the standard Kensington physical security devices to work with that. One of the things about ChromeOS is that, the cost of the device is pretty low. I'm not saying you want anybody walking off of them one way or the other, but it's still, in the case if someone was to walk off of it, it wouldn't be as catastrophic as it might be if you're talking about a Windows device. And then certainly they wouldn't be able to access any information or anything that could, invade anyone else's privacy or cause a security breach of any type. So there are, kind of the standard Kensington-type physical security devices that are out there, and we could probably point you in the direction of some of the particular models as well. Next one is, do Chromebooks have Wi-Fi capabilities? And yes, the answer is absolutely. Every Chromebook and every Chromebox has a Wi-Fi card built into it. We do have Chromebooks that have 4G modems in there as well. So if you ever got to a point where you needed to make it available, make internet access available outside of the Wi-Fi network, we also have those devices available. But every Chromebook has Wi-Fi capabilities. And then there's a question about, we are using SAM by Comprise. Is it possible to continue using that product? And that is a tool that I'm not familiar with. So if whoever sent that question could just shoot me an email with some more detail. My email address again is clydle@google.com, and I'll be happy to get an answer for you. And unless I'm mistaken, I think that's the end of the questions. I believe so. Well, we all very much appreciate your time today and the time you took to join us. I know you all are busy, and but if you have any questions, please shoot me an email again at clydle@google.com. And obviously, Lisa's information is available there on the screen. And Michael put some information on as well if you have any questions about ordering or any general questions of any type. We'll be following up with an email that'll have some links to some of the things that we talked about today, and also links to the Cloud Sherpa site if you want to request more information for ordering. And we'd love to answer any questions that you all might have as they come up. And I think as Lisa's kind of alluded to earlier, when you roll out a Chrome device, you have Google behind you in that regard. This is a huge initiative for us. We're really focusing on libraries. We want to be successful with libraries. So when it comes to addressing questions and issues that you all might have, you guys are really right there at the top of the list. And so we want to make certain that anybody who moves forward with a Chrome deployment gets the first class support that you're going to need to be successful. So I think that's about it. And again, you have our contact info. If you have any additional questions, please reach out, and we'll be following up with an email shortly. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.